wondered why planes don't fly over the Pacific Ocean? Maybe you wanted to know about strange things TSA has found. Well, you're in luck. Today, we're giving answers to these burning questions and more as we discuss interesting facts about airplanes. Number 10. Open waters. Let's start by answering our first question. Why don't planes fly directly over the Pacific Ocean? Well, the short answer is the Earth is round. Let me explain. If you take a piece of string and connect Los Angeles, California and Tokyo, Japan on a globe, the string will curve upwards towards Alaska because the Earth is round. Now, if you take that same path and project it onto a flat map instead of a globe, it will no longer look like a straight line, but rather a line that arcs high up towards Alaska and then back down. So on the flat map, it looks like the plane is flying out of the way, while on a globe you can see that the plane is actually taking the shortest route. Straight lines make for surprisingly longer trips, so they take the long way. Pilots will also plan flight paths as close to as many airports as they possibly can. So in our example, the pilot would fly directly up the west coast of the United States, over Alaska, parts of Russia, and then finally Japan. Another factor that keeps planes from flying in the perceived straight line is a no-fly zone called ETOPS 120. An ETOPS, or Extended Twin Operations, is a section of open water that planes cannot fly over in a plane that is not certified to fly more than 2 hours with a failed engine. Thus, some of the flights take an even wider arc to detour around those zones. Number 9. Penny pincher. If you've flown recently, you've probably noticed increased prices or decreased weight limits to baggage. These are just a few things that airlines have altered to cut costs in their companies. One of the most famous ways an airline has cut costs was proposed over 30 years ago when a self-proclaimed penny pincher, Robert Crandall, projected the company could save $40,000 annually if they cut just one olive from the first-class salad. And it did. In fact, some sources say it was closer to $100,000. United Airlines recently changed the paper in its in-flight magazines, making the magazine weigh just 1 ounce less than it did before. This saved the airline $290,000 per year in operating costs. The thought process behind this is the lighter a plane is, the less fuel it uses to get from point A to point B. The less money the airline spends on travel, the more money we as passengers save. Number 8. How many? Did you know there are around 5,000 flights in the air at any given time? According to the Federal Aviation Administration, it's true. To put this into perspective, the busiest airport in the world as of 2019 is the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, for the 21st year in a row. It had more than 170 million passengers last year. Chicago's O'Hare International Airport dethroned Atlanta for most aircraft movements, that's takeoffs and landings, handling nearly 904,000 movements in 2018. Also in 2018, airlines flew nearly 45 million different flights worldwide. Number 7. I'll have what he's having. Pilots and co-pilots are prepared different meals and are not allowed to eat the same food to avoid the possibility of food poisoning. While this rule isn't regulated by the Federal Aviation Administration, most individual airlines have their own rules. Incidents involving food poisoning are extremely rare, but once in a while it does happen. Once in 1982, a bad batch of tapioca pudding incapacitated 10 crew members, including the pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer. But luckily, the flight was able to turn around and land without any more problems. One airline stated that the pilots can have the same meal as long as they eat it at different times. Some airlines allow their crew to bring their own meals and snacks to help prevent further incidents. A tidbit of history regarding in-flight meals: the first airline meal was served on a Handley Page flight from London to Paris in 1919, which served a sandwich, fruit, and a piece of chocolate costing 3 shillings. Number 6. How it began. The Wright brothers invented and flew the first airplane in 1903. Their design, simply called the Flyer, had a 4-cylinder, water-cooled, 12-horsepowered engine with 2 wooden propellers that spun in opposite directions. The first flight was about 12 seconds and covered 120 feet. The record and most famous flight the Wright brothers performed was 59 seconds at a distance of 852 feet. It was the first time a man had flown. Today's planes are capable of so much more. The newest Boeing 787, for example, can fly 10,000 miles on a single tank of gas. Some other notable points of aviation history include the first cross-channel flight made by Louise Blériot in 1909. The first female pilot, Baroness Raymonde de la Roche of France, received ticket number 36 in 1910, and a year later the first female U.S. pilot, Harriet Quimby, with ticket number 37. In 1919, there was the first transatlantic flight and the first flight around the world in 1924. More recently, in 2007, Barrington Irving of Florida flew a Columbia 400 plane named Inspiration around the world in 96 days, 150 hours, making him the youngest and first black pilot to fly solo around the world. There were other two firsts in Black history. 1917 was the year the first Black combat pilot flew with the French Flying Corps. Eugene Jacques Bullard received the Legion of Honor, among many other decorations. Just a few years following that, in 1921, Bessie Coleman receives her pilot's license, becoming the first U.S. Black female pilot. Number 5. She did what? Everyone has heard ridiculous stories about what people have tried to smuggle onto airplanes, but this one might take the cake. A woman from Sweden once tried to smuggle 75 live snakes in her bra. Sounds too wild to be true, right? Well, you're right. It was only 65 snakes, and then they found 6 other lizards. The 42-year-old woman told TSA agents she was planning on starting a reptile farm. I guess the movie Snakes on a Plane is partially based on truth. Another story involves a loving pet who wasn't ready for his owner to fly away. A chihuahua was sleeping in the other room as the owner was packing. As she went through security, the bag set off an alarm and was inspected by TSA. They were shocked to find a small chihuahua looking back at them. The dog was not injured and was able to be reunited with its owner, who was just as surprised to find her puppy in her bag. If you want to hear more stories like this one, check out the TSA's Instagram. They post all sorts of ridiculous things they've confiscated throughout various airport terminals. Number 4. Cleared for landing. Not all runways are made alike. Some are set on sand, others on salt, others on busy thoroughfares. But the one thing they do have in common is the definition: a defined rectangular area on a land aerodrome prepared for the landing and takeoff of aircraft. The length of a runway varies by type of plane that each airport supports. The shortest runway in the world is located on the Caribbean island Saba. Juancho y Rausquin Airport's runway is only 1,299 feet long, which is way too short for jets that need runway at a minimum of 10,000 feet. Any aircraft planning on landing there needs special permission. Contrary-wise, the longest paved runway in the world is located in China. This runway, belonging to the Comdo Bomda Airport, is 18,045 feet long. The runway is usually thicker than the taxiway, the area where planes drive to drop off passengers. The landing zone has to be able to withstand the force and weight of the landing aircraft and keep it from cracking or buckling. Usually, runways are made out of concrete and topped with asphalt that's about 2 to 4 feet thick, while taxiways are thinner, only about 18 inches of concrete. Number 3. Lights, camera, action. Have you ever wondered why planes don't collide mid-air at night? It's because planes have colored lights on the tips of its wings, green for right and red for left. These lights let the pilot know if a plane is coming or going and how close it might be. These navigation lights are not just found on planes, but also on ships and spacecraft. Aircraft also have an anti-collision light on the bottom of the craft that is either a strobe or rotating beacon to aid activities in poor visibility. That twinkling star at night might just be an airplane. Number 2. Fear of flying. Some people are absolutely terrified of flying. This phobia is called aerophobia or aviophobia and can be debilitating if you love to travel. Most aerophobics start experiencing symptoms as they reach the airport, showing signs of irritability or show signs of panic attacks, while others don't start experiencing the phobia until they're already on the plane. But fear not, my frightful flyers. There are many things that make flying incredibly safe. For instance, did you know that airplanes are lightning-proof? The body of an airplane is designed like a Faraday cage, a container that blocks electromagnetic fields, which allowed the lightning strike to pass safely from tail to tip, causing no damage to the plane or any of its contents. Still not convinced? Well, in that case, you might want to select a seat in the back of the plane. Statistics show that in case of emergency landings, which is already ultra rare, the middle seat near the back of the plane is the best and safest place to sit. And the best place if you're worried about turbulence is right over the wing. It's the most balanced area of the plane and experiences less movement than the front or the back of the plane. If you have this phobia, know you're not alone. Some famous aerophobics include Ben Affleck, Sean Bean, Sandra Bullock, and Whoopi Goldberg. Number 1. Naps on the clouds. Did you know that some planes have secret compartments above the passenger compartment? On some larger planes, these compartments exist for the crew and are mostly used for transatlantic flights that are longer than 8 hours. Pilots are given FAA mandated break times for resting and will either sleep in one of the cabins, take a first or business class seat designated for them, or a cabin seat that reclines and has leg and foot supports. Sometimes the pilot is allotted for a small rest while in the cockpit. This is why there are always 2 pilots aboard. While one pilot sleeps, the other will man the controls, but sometimes the pilot will wake up and see that his co-pilot has accidentally drifted off as well. Luckily, most planes have an autopilot feature. This computer system charts the best course for the craft and keeps the fuel usage down. What was your best experience on a flight? What was your worst? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.